In this video, I want to give you a full and comprehensive guide on how to build and grow a SaaS application. I've really tried to compress everything I know into this one video, and I'll try to make it as action-packed as possible. We will start with the 3 different ways how you can find a startup idea. Then we will cover how and which tools you can use to actually build your first SaaS application, even if you don't know anything about coding. And then the final part, which probably is the most important part, how do you actually get users for your SaaS and how do you grow and market your SaaS? If you're new here, my name is Moritz. I have 10 plus years in tech and product management, and I quit my job in 2023 and decided to build my own businesses. Now I have a business called CopyCoder, which has hit over 20K per month, and a new SaaS business called Vireal, which is at 2.5K per month now. I've also founded the Prompt Warrior community, which is to help beginners build and grow SaaS. This video is for anyone that wants to build SaaS businesses, whether you're in a job and, kind of like me back then, I wanted to make a few $1,000s on the side as like a side income, or maybe you're an employee, you're unhappy with your job and you just always wanted to build your own business. Maybe you're already a freelancer or business owner and want to scale your business and want to build a profitable SaaS business to 100K in monthly recurring revenue. This video is for you. The great thing is in 2025, you really don't need much or any coding experience anymore. AI handles most of the technical stuff for us nowadays. And you also don't need a huge budget, which is amazing as well. So we really live in really lucky times. All you really need is determination, and you need the right strategies and know-how, which is what I try to solve in this video. Okay, why do I think now is the best time to build SaaS software? Well, SaaS has always been the best business model. It has recurring revenues, which compounds. It has high margins and basically infinite scale. It's just a dream business model, and no other business model comes close. But there was always a problem with SaaS, and that's it's kind of locked behind years of coding knowledge, right? Either you had to know coding yourself or you had to hire people to do the coding for you. And this all really changed with AI just around 2 years ago. And I do really think we're living through the biggest opportunity of our lifetimes right now, probably even bigger than the .com boom, because AI, especially in the software industry, has demolished all of these barriers to entry, and through that has really changed the industry forever. It's so much easier to get started now. But I also think the window won't stay open forever. I think there's probably a window of maybe 5 years where it's really good to build and not much has been built yet of what really needs to get built. And so now is really the time to claim the spot and claim a piece of the pie. At least that's what I'm planning to do. That's why I think it's a really good time to build. Okay, but without further ado, let's jump into step 1. Okay, step 1 is finding ideas. So I think overall there are 3 solid approaches to finding ideas, and I will list all of these 3 and talk about all of these 3. And I'll start with what I think is the easiest and move on to what I think is the hardest. The first one that I think every beginner should start with is basically copy what's already working. I think there's this very common beginner mistake that, you think ideas need to be totally unique and original. I've done this a lot in the past, and maybe you know this too, where you're kind of talking with your friends about some idea, and then there's always this one friend which says, well, there's already an app for that. And I think the problem is just that people don't really understand that, and somehow it's like, especially the case in software, that there can be multiple businesses existing that solve the same problem, right? It's not limited to one. That's why I actually think that this method is the best one for beginners. So to kind of illustrate that, I like to think about this concept of the marketplace of validated and unvalidated problems. Okay, the way I like to think about it is this way. So imagine we're having like a totally high level view of the entire existence of marketplaces, right? And then let me draw like a few bubbles here and I'll explain what I mean with those. So if we just imagine these are basically like all of the existing markets in the world, right? The entire universe of markets, then these bubbles here for me represent the problems that have been validated and where it's safe basically that, or it's known that people are paying for to have a problem being solved. Okay, there are some that are bigger than others, these are smaller, and then there's also this like blank space around it where the problem is unvalidated, like problems don't exist. So the question now is, for you as a beginner, is it easier to just place yourself within the bubble, within this bubble? There may be other competitors, sure. There are other people that are taking a part of this pie, so to say. But is it easier for you to try to just be like a small fish in this huge market? Or is it easier for you to try to find something in this like vast space of existing problems and try to find a new problem that actually people are willing to pay for, or that people actually want to have solved? Well, I'd argue it's much easier to find a bubble and just try to place yourself within that. So that's kind of the way I think about this. There's this analogy which I find really fitting of, like, imagine you are a person that really wants to start a restaurant business and you want to start it in your local town. And now you're thinking about, what kind of restaurant can I start? Well, if you choose an Italian restaurant, which would kind of represent this bubble here, then you already know that people really like Italian food, right? Like pizza and pasta, it's like everybody likes that, or most people like that. And you know that if you start an Italian restaurant, you will most likely get customers because people just like that food. So is it safer for you to start an Italian restaurant and just make it really good? Or is it safer for you to start like some kind of really new Asian, South American fusion cuisine where the waiters are all, you know, in rollerblades and like some crazy concept, which would be something out here. And, you know, maybe you're lucky, maybe you're super talented and you'll make it work. And in that case, it could be a huge hit. But the safe way to play it, especially if you're a beginner and not that experienced in business yet, is to just place yourself into an existing bubble and just do something that you know already works. I think the other misconception that kind of plays into this is that markets are usually much bigger than people even think. So I was recently talking to my partner and I was showing her this new app that I was thinking of building, which is basically an app targeted specifically for creators, only people that are creating content and people that are getting sponsorship requests because of that content. And when I showed her that, her natural instinct was to say, well, I don't know if the market for that is very big, because like I can't imagine myself using it, and I can't imagine that there are a lot of people that would want this. I think it's very natural for people to think that if you're not in that, if you're not actually the target customer. Then I just went into ChatGPT and kind of showed her the calculations of why this is not true. So I asked how many influencers in total are there, and then I asked how many of these influencers, or how many influencers are there that have over 10,000 followers roughly. The answer that it gave me was between 9 and 12 million. So let's say 10 million. And then let's just say that we built this SaaS business and we got only 1% eventually of these 10 million influencers to sign up to our $10 per month plan. Well, just from that, our MRR would already be at somewhere around 1 million per month, which is crazy, like a 12 million ARR business. The point is just that I think most people underestimate how big markets actually are, and they're usually bigger than you think. The thing that I do want to mention is that just copying a business one for one exactly and doing exactly what this other business or product is doing will not work that well. The way you should do it and the right way to do it is to copy and then differentiate yourself. So let me give you some examples. Let's say we see that the AI video generator niche right now, so the suite of products that are doing AI video generation is working really well right now. We're seeing a lot of businesses online that seem to be making money in this niche. And so let's copy that. We're going to build one, and we're going to then not just make it exactly like all of the others, but we're going to make one that is specific to the education niche. So specifically for, let's say, marketing videos in the education niche. And we can build very targeted features that exactly match what the target persona within that niche would want. So we're taking something, we know that there's demand in this market, and we're niching it down. Let's look at screenshot tool market. So, you know, there are a lot of screenshot tools built by indie hackers, and we know that this is an existing market and that people pay for these kind of tools. So why don't you make one that is open source and that charges for add-on features? Here the differentiation is not in the niche itself or in the features, but actually in the pricing model, right? Let's look at writing tools. So writing tools obviously is a huge market. Like Notion, for example, is a writing tool, right? And you wouldn't want to, when you're starting out, you wouldn't want to do a Notion clone and kind of try to compete with Notion. But you can create a writing tool that is like Notion, but you make it niche down for content creators, and you do a heavy AI integration. So this and this will attract content creators that want a heavy AI integration to use your tool rather than Notion, or they can even use both tools. The point here is that you want to niche down and create something a bit more specific as you copy something. Okay, the second method is to solve your own problems. And this is probably the most common advice you hear in the startup community, because it is definitely a method that works very well. There are a lot of benefits to it. So one of them is that you're just the expert, you're kind of the ideal customer. You're just building for yourself. So you're the builder and the customer at the same time. And that allows you to have a very good insight into the problem. And you basically don't need to be guessing like what the customers want, and you don't need to be doing, at least in the initial stages, you don't need to be doing much research into what the customer wants, because you just know yourself. The other benefit is that if you've built something that you really use, you truly use, and it truly solves one of your problems, that you can know almost for sure that it will solve other people's problems too, because of just the scale of the internet and the world, frankly, and how people are connected now. This problem will exist for some other person as well, and you are able to reach these other people. So some of the issues that I have with this approach is that sometimes it can be really hard to actually be honest with yourself and say, is this really a problem, or am I just kind of making up this problem because I want to find an idea? And so it's sometimes hard to find the distinction between that. And I think one of the things that you would really need to ask yourself if you build an MVP version of something that solves your own problem is to just check if you are using this tool repeatedly. If you're not using it repeatedly, then it means it doesn't solve your problem. And then it also won't solve a problem for other people. And the other thing you should ask yourself is, would you pay for this? Which is hard to answer because, again, you're in this position of thinking about what can I build to make money, and then it's very hard to answer this question honestly. The indicators usually that will tell you if you're willing to pay for this is if it really saves you time, or if it really saves you money or makes you money, because that means then it's a more painful problem, and more painful problems usually mean more money. The other problem is that this approach of solving your problems done by most of the people in the tech space. And so it's kind of saturated a bit of the possible problems that, or all the problems that exist within this space. Of course, if you're in like some other space which is not so tech heavy, like, I don't know, real estate, finance, insurances, and so on, then I think this is still a very good method, because people in that industry are usually not that entrepreneurial minded, and they don't, start to think about, okay, this is a problem that actually can be solved with software. And the third method here is basically doing research. Now, this method is not necessarily one that's like a standalone thing, but I put it here as the third one because the third method is basically doing research. Now, that's not to say that if you're not copying something and if you're also not solving any of your own problems, there's a third way of just basically trying to find a problem by doing research. And this method is definitely harder, but if you do really find something, then it can be a huge hit, because it's like it might be in a not saturated space, and you can, because of your research, validate that this problem actually exists, and that's why it can be a huge hit. And if you think about it nowadays, there's also a bigger opportunity than ever to do this. Like in the past, you didn't have all of the tools and resources that you have now to be able to do this research. So the biggest tool we have now, of course, is that we have social media. And on social media, people talk about their problems, which is amazing. So all we need to do is just listen. Some of the really good platforms to do that is X, Reddit, and also to an extent YouTube. But X and Reddit especially, because it's people go on there to talk, and when they talk, they just talk about their problems. One of the things you should focus on is to really dig into the comments of things. So not just look at the high-level posts. That's usually, you usually don't find that much information in the posts themselves. But if you go into the comments and really dig through them, that's where you can find some gems. And just try to scan for people talking about what they wish for, anger, something that angers them about a product, and just problems that they have. So try to create a habit of just exploring with the mindset of looking for ideas. When you're exploring these, when you're going through social media platforms, just have this mindset that you are looking for ideas now. The other thing that I think is a good approach is being aware of viral content. And basically, whenever you see viral content, to think about, okay, why did this actually go viral? And is there a business that can be built on this viral concept? So CopyCoder is actually an example of that, because we saw that this concept of turning a screenshot into code is something that really catches attention and that people really like. And so we thought about, okay, how can we use that concept to our advantage and build a business around this concept? The other thing that's very important is that you should always check if a market is growing. Like, the worst thing that you can do is to build a business in a market that's shrinking. One example would be in the newspaper market, because then you just have so many forces working against you. If you want to build a successful business, one of the most important things is that you're in a growing market, because then you just have all of the forces moving with you. And the way you can check that is you can go to Google Trends and just basically find different keywords and try to see if there are growing trends. You can go to this website called Exploding Topics, where you can find different trends that are growing. And you can also check subreddits that are related to this. And basically, there are some tools where you can check how fast subreddits are growing. And finally, what's also part of this is that you should try to talk to users. And when you talk to users, there's this book that I really recommend you read before you talk to users. But basically, to like quickly summarize it in one sentence, what this book says is that when you talk to users, you should never ask them questions about the future. You should always ask them questions about the past. What does this mean? So if you ask them about what have you done in the past to, for example, solve this problem, what have you done today to solve this problem, then you're getting a real answer. Versus if you ask them something like, would you pay for this? Or what do you think of this? Then they will usually say something that is not very reliable. They might even lie to you just to be nice to you. That's why it's called the mom test. And so these questions are good. How did you handle this problem today? What's the most annoying part about your current solution? So all of these are asking about actual facts and what has happened in the past. How much time, money does this problem cost you right now? And when was the last time you faced this issue? Okay, and finally, I just want to add that there are a couple of mistakes that people do in this stage that you should really try to avoid. So one is, which I already kind of mentioned just now in the second part here. So the first one is what I kind of already mentioned a bit in the solving your own problems part here, which is to think it would be cool to have, and you basically build the full-fledged version. And that's why I said it can be a bit risky to try to solve your own problems, because it's very easy to slip into this mindset of, oh, wouldn't this be good to have? And then let me just build it. And I think it's fine to build like a super MVP version of it, but there are so many people that are basically just building an entire like full-fledged business and spending like 2-3 months of their life to build something just based off an idea of wouldn't this be cool to have, and they didn't actually do any research. They didn't test if they're using it repeatedly, if it's actually solving a problem, or if there are other businesses that are doing this and people are paying money for this. And so don't fall into this trap. The other thing on the other extreme of this is the danger of not starting at all and trying to wait for the perfect idea. The thing is, the perfect idea will never really happen. Usually ideas evolve over time. So if you get started, your idea will evolve and you will get new information that will help you to pivot your idea, or not even completely pivot, but like slightly kind of meander through the idea maze, and then eventually end up on finding the right idea. So the worst thing you can do is just not starting and thinking that the perfect idea will somehow hit you. This never happens. The other thing that I also already mentioned is that thinking that the market is too small. The market is almost never too small. What can happen is that a problem just doesn't exist. Like, you're making up a problem. Then the market is actually small. It just doesn't exist. But if there is a small market, so if it does solve a problem, then the market is almost never too small. At least for our scales, right? For if you're just planning to build a good cash flowing business that will make you a good income, then the market is almost never too small. If you're thinking about building a unicorn, then yeah, you do need to think about these things. But at this stage, you probably don't. And then finally, one of the mistakes that people also often make is thinking, and that's kind of related to the market is too small. Because they think, oh, what they're building, the market is too small, they're building this product to be targeting a big market. They're building for everyone. And the problem with that is that you're building something for everyone, and that at the same time means you're kind of building for no one. And no one will really like this product because it's just way too broad. So essentially the problem is that you're not nailing your avatar. And it's really important to nail the avatar, the person that you're building this for. Okay, step 2 is to actually build your application. So before I jump into the tech stack, let me just give you a few general notes. And the first one is that you should always aim to build a super simple version. Like if you notice yourself starting to build more than one feature, that's usually when you know I'm kind of going too far. You should just have one core feature and not build all of the features at once. You should build one feature, test that, and later on, after you've launched and after you've gotten customers, you can start adding more features. You should also aim to build something quickly. Like if you're someone that's a bit more experienced, you should aim to build something in 2 weeks and get it out. If you're a beginner, aim for 4 weeks. That's totally possible, I think, to build something in 4 weeks as a beginner. The other thing I'll say also is that don't think that this process is easy. Even though AI has made things a lot easier now, it still can be frustrating sometimes, and it is definitely sometimes still hard. You will need to push through things, and you will sometimes get stuck. There will be some days where you have a bug that you can't fix for the entire day or more, and you will just have to push through it. But that's just part of building a business. I remember a friend once told me this thing, which I still think of today. And he said, yeah, if it was easy, then everybody would do it. And if everybody would do it, then that would mean it does not have a lot of value. So the fact that it is hard to do and not everyone does it actually makes this a valuable thing later. Then the other thing is also, when you're coding and building things, make sure that you roughly understand what's happening. Don't go with like the completely pure vibe coded, blindly vibe coding things and hoping that it works. You should try to understand what's actually happening in the code base. How is the logic within your code right now? Like, where are the integrations happening? Where are the API calls happening? Get a good overview of what is happening in your code base and try to really understand what is happening in there. And this will help you debug issues and just make sure that you can fix things in a much smoother way than if you don't understand anything. What you can also do, and that's kind of related, is you should or you can hire someone later on once you've launched. Maybe if you don't want to spend anything on that, just do it after you have the first couple of customers and use that money to hire someone to just patch up the security, because that can sometimes be an issue. Just have like an experienced dev look over it and just tell you, here is what you need to fix. And once you know what you need to do, you can usually also do it yourself. And this won't cost a lot of money, like maybe 100, 200 to have someone evaluate your code. Later on, of course, you can also partner up with someone, a more experienced developer who just wants to build this thing with you together. You should always aim to get customer feedback early and often. That's just the best way to do it. Like, try to ship fast, try to get customer feedback early and often, and then integrate that into your product. And very important, don't overthink which tech to use at this stage. And that's why we're going to go into the tech stack now, because I will just give you the tech stack. You don't need to worry much about, can I optimize it here? Can I optimize that later? You can do all of that later. For now, just take what I'm giving you and just use that. Okay, so for the tech stack, I'll go through this quickly and then I'll go into detail in each one of them. So you want some kind of prototyping tool to start, something like Lovable, Bolt, V0, or CopyCoder. You'll want an IDE, integrated development environment, and that can be Cursor, VS Code, Windsurf, and Claude Code. Again, I'll talk about this in a minute. And then you want some kind of web framework and front-end frameworks. And then you will want a backend, and I recommend Supabase for that. Then something for authentication, just to make it a bit easier, is Clerk. And then usually you will want some kind of email sending integration, and for that, Loops and Resend is really good. And then for payments, you can use Stripe or Polar. And then for actually deploying your app, so getting it live and hosting it, you can use Vercel. Okay, let's jump into each of these. So the purpose of the prototyping tools, Lovable, Bolt, and I put all of them there because it really doesn't matter which one you use. They all more or less have the same features. But what you want to do in the early stage is just to explore visually what kind of features your app could have and how they would feel like. And this doesn't have to be the final stage. You kind of just want to, at this point, prototype and explore visually. You can also use these tools to build a landing page. That's actually one of the good use cases of them. Build a landing page and a waitlist. Even better, what you can do before building the prototype is to just build a landing page and a waitlist, put that out there and try to get some people to sign up to your waitlist, because that's also a form of validation to see if people actually want this and are willing to put in their email address into a website. And the purpose of this is also just to practice vibe coding a bit. Just see how, if you haven't done it, just see how these tools work and how you can turn a prompt into an actual working piece of software. All right, the next part is now the important part, which is like the tool that you're actually going to use to build your main application. And the reason why I list these tools, Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code, and Claude Code, is because it's very hard to build something actually useful with these prototyping tools. Like, it is possible, there are some people that are doing it. At some point where your code gets more complex, it's just much easier to continue building in an actual more professional tool like Cursor, VS Code, Windsurf. And which one you choose of these doesn't really matter. Right now, at the recording of this video, the setup that I have is VS Code with Claude Code, just because Claude Code currently is the best AI coding tool. Just a few months ago, I was using only Cursor, and at some point I was also using Windsurf. All of them are good. And I think it doesn't really matter too much which one you use. But yeah, if you're watching this video right now, I would try to go for using Claude Code in one of these tools, because Claude Code kind of can be used within all of these 3 tools. Okay, then we have the kind of front end frameworks, and you don't need to really fully understand what exactly this does, although it's always good to do some research and to just ask ChatGPT what exactly this means. What is Next.js? What is ShadsCN? But basically what you need to know is that applications are built on a bunch of building blocks, and you don't want to, if you build an application, you wouldn't want to go all the way to how actually, the bits are being sent in your processor, right? At the same time, you also wouldn't want to build out like all of the ways that the application works and how, things are being hosted and how like the client interact with the service and so on. So my point is that there are these frameworks which just makes building a lot easier, and Next.js currently is the most popular one for building web applications. And actually one thing I forgot to add is if you want to build a mobile application, Expo for mobile apps, that's currently the most popular one. Yeah, so just go with the most popular one, right? Because the benefit is also that if you choose the most popular one, then it's also really good for AI, because AI will be more trained on that, and that will help you. Again, Next.js is kind of like the skeleton, skeleton building block that you're building on top of. And then ShadsCN are basically UI building blocks. So things that are being used a lot in applications, for example, buttons, sidebars, certain views, you don't need to rebuild all of them again from scratch. You can just use this library, and they look, quite pretty the way they are in this library. And you can just use these, and that will help you build the user interface a lot faster. What you can also do is start with a boilerplate, which is like a template in Next.js, for example, right? And on this website, you'll find a bunch of these templates. And the good thing is that like they're built on or using Next.js, a lot of them, and they have some of the other things already integrated within it. So some of the things that I'll mention here, like Supabase, or like the ability to integrate to Supabase, the ability to integrate to loops and so on, they have a lot of these things kind of already set up for you so that you don't need to rebuild everything from scratch. So using this is also a good idea. Okay, when you're building an app, you always need a backend, and you need to store your data somewhere, because otherwise, if you refresh your app, all of the data is gone, right? So you always need a backend, and Supabase is currently, in my opinion, the best provider for that. There are, again, many other providers, but Supabase is the one that a lot of people currently are using, and it's very popular, has a big community. I would say the integration setup is pretty easy or relatively straightforward. And the benefit is also that it includes, you can actually have authentication. You can do user authentication within Supabase as well. And it has multiple sign-up options. But I would actually recommend, since we're talking about authentication, to use Clerk, because that makes authentication even easier. So that's the, login and sign up and making sure that only the user can access their own data and so on. That's everything that has to do with authentication. And Clerk makes this building of that part even easier. Building the authentication and integrating your backend are often stumbling blocks for beginners. And these are the things that start to get a bit harder when beginners are building applications. The UI is usually pretty straightforward, but it gets harder with the backend and the authentication. So it's always good to use something that makes things easier. Usually when you're building a SaaS, you will also want some kind of email sending integration. So when people sign up, you want to send them a code, or you want to do like some marketing campaigns, or if they take certain actions in your application, you want to send them an email. You can also set up like a onboarding flow. So there are two types of emails that these applications work with. Transactional emails, these are basically emails that are sent whenever a user takes some action in your app. And then there are marketing emails, which are, for example, the onboarding sequence, which is just, you can configure it to send out 5 emails over the course of the first 2 weeks after the user has signed up, right? Or you can just send like weekly campaign emails where you're just writing something and trying to give them value. You can do all of these through these platforms. I currently use Loops for Copycoder. I think it's really good because one of the benefit of Loops is that they've kind of optimized the email deliverability, which is always a bit of an issue if you have a new domain, that sometimes your emails will land in spam, or if you don't do things correctly, that they will basically be blocked by the email providers. And Loops handles this really well kind of in the background, and you don't need to worry much about that. All right, payments is this other thing that's, an essential building block of an application that you want to bring to customers. And I put 2 options here. So one is just Stripe. Almost everybody uses it and everybody knows it. It is a good choice, definitely. The problem with Stripe is, and that's why I put Polar, is that you kind of need to deal with your taxes later, and that's annoying. So if you use Polar, you don't need to deal with taxes, because Polar is what's called a merchant of record, which essentially means they're kind of like a business in between. So they charge your customers and collect the payments, and then they send the payments to you. And just this makes it, of course, a bit more expensive. So you have slightly higher fees than with Stripe. But at the same time, you also don't need to deal with taxes, which is great. Some notes, since we're on this topic, about pricing. How do you actually price your plans? I would recommend for the beginning not to have a free plan. Customers nowadays are used to have free plans for everything. And I think the VC-funded startup companies are basically to blame for that, because they, like, these companies get a bunch of money that they can spend, and their goal is to use that money to grow. And the best way to grow is to have a free plan. But the thing is, you're at the stage where growth is not your number one priority, right? If you're just starting out, your number one priority is actually just to get it out there and make sure you get some customers that are actually paying you money, because then you know that this problem is validated. Growth comes later when you know that something is validated. So for the beginning, for the first few months, I would really recommend to not have a free plan. And you can then later think about whether a free plan makes sense. But it should all just be in the context of the free plan is a mechanism to help you grow faster. And if you're thinking about what price you should actually put your plans at, or the single plan that you're launching with, what price it should be at, just try to price it in the ballpark of what other products in this space are at, right? Don't make the mistake of pricing way too high. Like, I once talked to a guy who, was creating a software, and then he was kind of saying like, well, from like first principles perspective, the value that I'm providing here is so high, and so I'm going to do this as like a 200 per month plan. The thing is, other people are used to software in that space, like B2C software in that space, to be priced at more like 20 per month. And so if they see 200 per month, it just does not at all match expectations. Like 200 per month, then you're clearly targeting B2B, you're targeting other businesses only. And so just like know what other companies in this space are pricing at and price it somewhere around that. And this is like one thing that you can optimize later, and you can do testing to optimize your pricing. But in the beginning, just start with whatever the range is in that industry. Okay, and finally, we have the deployment. And here I say use Vercel. The great thing is that since you're building this with Next.js, Vercel is actually the company behind Next.js. And they also have this solution that makes it really easy to host your project. And deployment basically means putting it live onto the internet. So the process here is super simple. All you need to do is you have your code, you just upload it to GitHub. You just sync your Vercel with GitHub, and then that essentially deploys it, and you will see a live link. Okay, moving on to step 3, which is growing your product. So how do you do the marketing for your product to actually get users? I will go through all of the existing marketing options, and then I will go through my recommended step-by-step approach. Before we do that, let me just give you again some general notes. The right mindset I think to have is to try to think about marketing before you're even building. Nowadays, the marketing first approach is really important, and you want to try to understand really what the market is saying and how they're talking about products in your space before you're building something. The other thing is also that just you should appreciate that we live in really an incredible era for marketing. If you think about just, 20 years ago or even more, like marketing was super hard to do. You had to, you had to spend a lot of money to either buy billboards or buy air on television. And nowadays you don't need to do any of that anymore. You can just reach your customers directly, and that's amazing. So it's really never been easier to get users, and we're living in an amazing time. I also think you need to be aware that marketing is really important because AI will make building products easier and easier. So step 2 of this guide is just going to get easier and easier, and you will be able to, just give it a few prompts and have things being built out for you. So the real long-term competitive advantage that you can have is to just have a really good distribution strategy. And so marketing is going to be even more important in the future, I think. Okay, let's go through all of the marketing options that right now exist. So I've tried to list everything, and I started with creating content because I think that's the best one. And there are different kind of ways how you can market by creating content. So one of them is inside of communities. So inside of Reddit, subreddits, Facebook communities, X also kind of has communities, Discord, actually another one I'll add here is School. And the great thing about communities is that people have kind of already pre-selected what they care about. And so you have a very targeted audience. And that makes it great for creating content there because you're targeting a very specific audience already. Okay, so then there's obviously just like general content creation on social media platforms. And there are so many platforms now, but I'm just listing the biggest ones. So there's X. I would say on X, it's a bit harder to grow and get attention in the beginning if you have a totally fresh account, but it's a really good platform for people that are building in public. So if you just want to use it as a kind of journal and, do some marketing as you're building so that you're not wasting that time when you're building and already starting to slowly, build some momentum, then X is really great for that. It has a really good building in public community. And of course, X is really good if you don't want to do any video content and you just like to write things and not necessarily put your face in front of something. Same for LinkedIn, of course. It's just a writing platform. And the added benefit of LinkedIn is that a lot of, industry people hang out there. So if you have a B2B product, you should really be targeting LinkedIn. Whereas X is a bit more like this, solopreneur, entrepreneur crowd, and LinkedIn are more employees and businesses, basically. Okay, then there is TikTok for short form videos. And the great thing about TikTok is that it's just they've really tuned their algorithm to make it possible to go viral from day one. So the amount of followers is not that important anymore. You can, with a good piece of content, go viral from your first post. All you should do is when you open your account or when you create your account, make sure that you don't immediately post. Like use it as a normal user for a few days, just like the kind of niches and like the videos of the niche that you want to be in, and just try to use the platform like a normal user for a couple of days, just to avoid you being flagged as a bot by these platforms. And then you really have the possibility to just go viral from the first video. It's actually happened to me. I've heard that, and I think that's the case, that TikTok even boosts your first couple of videos a little bit because they kind of want you to get this initial dopamine hit and then come back to using the platform. But yeah, TikTok is really good for getting attention fast. Instagram is similar, and I would say compared to TikTok, it's slightly harder to grow, but audience, I would say, is a bit more valuable than TikTok, or maybe not a bit, like probably quite a lot more valuable than TikTok. TikTok has a lot of young people, and Instagram has a bit more older people, and I would say a more valuable audience. Then YouTube has still the highest value audience, I would say. Probably the other high value, the second highest value audience would be on X or LinkedIn, but I would say YouTube has the highest value audience. The problem with YouTube, obviously, is that the content production time takes more. So if you do long form videos, it just takes much more time to create content. There's also Facebook, which I would say and categorize it as more of an older and less tech savvy crowd. And if your business or your product is kind of in that space, then Facebook could be a good choice for you. Okay, and then there is affiliate marketing. So affiliate marketing is basically, it's creating content, but it's just getting other people to create content for you. And it's incentivizing people to create content by giving them a share of your profits. So the way that affiliate programs usually work is that you give them anywhere from like 20 to 50% of the money that the customers pay you goes to the affiliate, which is the person that actually brought in this customer. If you want to be very aggressive, then it's usually good to go with around 50%. That's what we're doing for Vireel right now in the beginning, just to try to get affiliates on board. If you have a later more mature product that, you know, really converts very well, I think you can decrease that a bit and go to 30% or 20 or 30%. The thing is, if you have a product that is only paying out 20% or even less than that, then usually affiliates will feel like, well, then it doesn't really make sense for me to do marketing for you if I'm only going to get this small amount. Okay, then there's influencer marketing, which is just paying influencers that already have an audience a fixed amount of money to create content for you. You can, of course, also have deals with them where you pay them a fixed amount and then an additional either bonus based on the views that they get for their the particular content that they create for you. This is a common model right now. Or you can even combine it with affiliate. So you can say, I'll pay you this fixed amount and you can also sign up to the affiliate program and that will get you some more money. Okay, and then there's also this whole category of SEO and now with AI, like AI SEO basically. And I put it into the category of creating content because it's kind of all the same. Because what you essentially do if you want to optimize for SEO, and that just means like for Google mainly. So appearing high on Google searches and having a lot of people being able to find you through Google. The most typical thing to do is to just write blog posts. You want to write blog posts about specific topics so that when people search for something, they then end up on these blog posts. So Google pushes these blog posts as results. And then they end up on these blog posts, and because of those blog posts, they end up on your website. The other alternative you can do to that is what's called programmatic SEO. So that's not creating blog posts, but actually like landing pages in a programmatic manner. So you essentially create one template of a landing page for all kinds of different topics or like searches that people would do. And you create, a bunch of landing pages and just they all link back to your website. And then just hope that Google ranks these landing pages whenever people search for things. The other thing is listing on directories. That's mainly for backlinks. So the more backlinks your website has, the higher it will rank. And so if you list on directories, you'll get backlinks, and that will make your website rank higher in search results. Another thing that you can do is building free tools. So people search for certain things and they are much more likely to click on a free tool that solves their problem directly. So that can be a very simple tool like a calculator. So let's say you're like in the real estate, you're building a real estate product, and something that people might often search for in that space is like how does my mortgage develop over time or something like that, right? So you can build a small tool that does exactly that. It will rank high for search results where people are trying to do this calculation, and they will land on your tool, and that's where you can then link your website. So that's the basic concept of SEO. And if we're now talking about AI SEO, it's more or less the same. If you do well on SEO, you will usually do well on AI SEO too. There are some minor differences, but I think this is like a evolving space, and this will still change over time. So for now, if you optimize for regular SEO, you will also at the same time optimize for AI SEO. Okay, and the next big category here is paid ads. Paid ads is obviously you pay one of these platforms something to just push your content in front of people. And this is the most like easy way to get in front of people, I would say. But of course, the downside is that it costs you money, whereas creating content is mostly free. And if I were to rank the current platforms where you can do paid ads on, I would put Meta and TikTok ads as the best. I would put paying newsletters, so buying newsletter ads as like in the middle, and then I would put running ads on X and YouTube as rather hard. Okay, then there's this whole category of cold outreach. I'll be honest, I personally do not like this method too much, and I also haven't done it too much, but it essentially falls into two categories here, which is DMs on social media and cold emails. And I think both of them can feel a bit spammy, especially DMs on social media, but you do get results because the game that you're playing there is just basically volume. You want to send out as much as possible, and then you have like a small conversion rate, I don't know, 1 or 2% of people that then actually go and sign up. Of course, you can optimize that. If your outreach message is really good, then you might get a higher percentage share. Then there are also a bunch of launch platforms. The most popular one, of course, is Product Hunt. It's really good to get started and to try to basically get some initial users. And it can also help you with SEO, because if you're on Product Hunt and you've done a pretty good launch, then it will help with backlinks. Some of the other things that you can do is podcast marketing or also live events, but I think you shouldn't really need to think about those in the beginning. I also listed some outdated methods, more as like saying that you should probably avoid these because they don't really matter anymore. So people used to do that in the past, try to get press coverage and try to do physical ads. Of course, maybe there are some edge case businesses where this still works, buying physical ads. Like I know like the first business I did, I definitely printed flyers and handed them out. If you're doing like a local SaaS and you're targeting only the people in your town or in your area, maybe flyers can work. But overall, I would say the other online methods definitely work a lot better nowadays. Okay, so this has given you hopefully a good overview of all of the methods that exist. Might not be completely exhaustive, but you can see like a good high level view of the methods that are existing. And now which one should you actually do? And this is where I am trying to put together this recommended step-by-step approach for you that you can take with 5 different steps. So I think the first one you should start with is to go into communities. So this creating content inside of communities, because as I mentioned, this is a very targeted audience. So you find these communities, you know exactly that these people care about something. And what you should do for a couple of weeks is to just be a member in this community, join the conversations, provide some value. And that might help you even get a bit of a standing in the community already. And then you can, over time, kind of mention the thing that you're building, just subtly mention it. Especially in Reddit, this can work quite well, where you just, post something that is valuable to the community. And then at the end of it, you can say, and by the way, the app that I'm building right now, it solves this, or maybe you want to go check out this app. But yeah, don't make it too aggressive. Don't just make it look like an ad. That will usually get you banned from these communities. And I put this as step 1 because it's not super scalable, but in the beginning, you should do things that are not super scalable because you're just trying to find information and get your first users. Some examples of this are you go into a subreddit that is targeted at health and you post in there. Another example is maybe you're targeting expats and then you look for YouTube channels that are in that niche and you try to hang out with the community of this YouTube channel, such as in the comments or in kind of the community that the creator of this channel has built. Okay, and after this stage, the thing that I would do is to start creating content with the goal of going viral. So first, pick a social media platform depending on your own strengths and also the product that you have. What you have to know nowadays is that everybody is kind of following the TikTok model more and more, in that followers are less important. So in the past, 5-10 years ago, the amount of followers determined how many views your content got. But nowadays, as I mentioned with TikTok, like your first post can go viral. So it's just important that you make good content. And if you make good content, it's pretty much guaranteed that you will get eyeballs on it, and that means you will get users. So what you can do to maximize this is, that's the best thing that you can do, is to just study viral content word by word and then try to recreate it in your style. The way I like to see it is, it's like learning an instrument. It's the same with content. Like when you're learning an instrument, you don't want to just pick up the guitar and then just start inventing songs, but you want to, play a song that already exists, practice your skill, and then over time, if you get good enough, you can invent your own songs. The most important thing in content is always the hook. And that's kind of like a global thing. It's not just on one platform. Like on every platform, the most important thing is the hook, because people on these platforms, they have very low attention spans. So you need to kind of catch them with the first few seconds and give them a reason why they should watch this or read this. So focus 80% of your attention when you're creating content on the first part of it. And yeah, just deeply think about what people want and what their emotions are. Once you've figured that out, it'll be easy for you to create good content that can go viral. So one of the awesome things about viral marketing is that once you hit something that goes viral, it's not just the attention that you get from your own content, it's actually this like rippling effect of all of the other creators seeing that this concept went viral and them doing a copy of this, because that's kind of just what happens in content creation. Like creators copy from each other. And so if you manage to hit something to go viral with your own product, then it's very likely that other people will pick that up and create content about that too. So it has a multiplying effect. All right, the next step then is to launch an affiliate network. So you've figured out how to create content and maybe sometimes you go viral. And what you want to do now is scale this up and delegate the content creation to other people. And the best way to do that is to basically set up an affiliate network and let people know that you are sharing your revenue with whoever wants to create content about you. And the reason I put this here in step 3 is because if you've done step 2 well and you've managed to find angles and formulas that are going viral for your product, then this will signal to other creators that it's possible to go viral, and it aligns with their incentive of also wanting to go viral or like to create content that catches a lot of attention, because the main incentive of creators is to just grow their audience and to create popular content. And if you've already demonstrated that, it makes it so much easier for you to have a successful affiliate program if you can demonstrate that your content performs well. As a next step, then you can optimize your SEO. The reason I put that here is because that SEO optimization process usually takes a bit of time. It's not very instant. It can take several months to actually see the results of that. It's still great because Google traffic is still very, very high. As I mentioned, LLM traffic will probably come mostly from the SEO results. And the good thing also about doing step 1 to 3 is that that naturally helps with SEO. So if you have a lot of content out there which links to your site and people are searching for your site and clicking on stuff, that will help in the SEO optimization. So specifically what you can do here is you try to find long tail keywords. So you do some research about what people are searching for, but very long 5-word searches, so long tail keywords basically, of things related to your product. And once you've found a lot of these and listed all of them, you can start creating blog posts that answer exactly that question or answer exactly that long tail keyword search. Okay, and finally, as step 5, I put paid advertisement, because in theory now you should have gotten some traction and you should have gotten some money. And that's where you can think about, okay, how do I amplify this? How do I take this money and just get even more attention? And that's where you can start paying influencers to create more content for you. And that's where you can start running paid ads. You have to know that if you run paid ads, it's a different game, right? So what can work is you take the organic content that has worked well and try to run paid ads on that. So that is a strategy that can work. But very often you kind of need to just, again, test a bunch of different content and see which one will convert the best and perform the best on paid ads, because these two things are often very different games. So just be aware that these are two different things, and that if you start doing paid ads, that it might take you some time to learn the process and to actually get good at it. Okay, and that's it. A full guide on how to build and grow your software business all the way from start to finish. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you're looking for more support and a community to build together, then consider joining the Prompt Warrior community. Come check it out. I'll put a link below. Good luck out there. I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.